These chapters are directed to the spiritual practitioner, well, what I call the spiritual practitioner. The spiritual practitioner is not a spiritual seeker. The spiritual practitioner is one that is practicing enlightenment. It might seem strange to talk about practicing enlightenment. The usual idea is that you find enlightenment. Maybe you find it immediately, or you find it after lots of effort, and then problem solved. You're enlightened and that's it. End of story. The Buddha taught something called the tenfold path, although the eightfold path is normally what's most familiar. But there is a tenfold path, and the last two parts of the path, parts that aren't normally included in the eightfold path, are right insight and right liberation. So this is the path that we tread. We tread the path of right insight and right liberation. Liberation is a practice. This is what I mean by the spiritual practitioner. The spiritual practitioner is one in whom consciousness has realized its own nature, its own essential nature. So it might be more accurate to talk of the enlightenment practitioner. The enlightenment practitioner. Enlightenment is something that is practiced. Vasishta continued, O Ram, that is called the self, svarupam, which knows external forms and internal psychological states. This is all there is, external forms and internal psychological states. The word knows is used. That is called the self, which knows external forms and internal psychological states. This is the shape or form of the self. This is what svarupam means. And we're talking about knowing here, but not in the usual sense. Knowing normally means identifying with something, conceptualizing it. But here the self is seeing that that is all there is. This is the stream of experiencing. It consists of what we often describe as external forms and internal states, psychological and emotional states. We normally are caught up in that duality. We identify with the psychological states and we externalize objects, what the senses, what we call the sense experiences. But really we could say it's all external or all internal. The self observes this, knows that this is all that's going on. This is the stream of experiencing. When the not-self is weakened and self-nature expands, in the light that then arises the world is realized as a mere experience. We need to be careful with the word mere here. Mere nowadays seems to have connotations of trivial, but what mere means is unadorned. It means nothing more, nothing less. It means it simply is what it is. Why am I stressing this? Because it isn't simply an experience. Our reality is ideas about what's going on. This is the reality we relate to. Ideas, notions about what is going on. But when the not-self is weakened, and that is when we're not identifying with these notions, when the reality that we normally believe in, when we start to realize the notional nature of our everyday reality, then in that light the world is realized as simply experience or experiencing. It's what I call the field of experiencing. There's just experiencing going on right now. That's all. The experiencing seems to consist of external forms and internal psychological states. This is the experiencing. There's no past, there's no future. These are all ideas, these are all fabrications. There's no ideas about things. There's no you there. I've got an idea of a you watching this, but that's a notion in my head. There's a camera there, or what I call a camera. There's what I perceive and then notionalize as a camera. There's a certain colour and shape which I then notionalize into the object of a camera. When one is fully established in the self, then this world appearance ceases like a dream during deep sleep. Well, it doesn't actually cease. Its drawing power, its enchantment ceases when you're fully established in the self. Then the dreamlike nature, the notional nature of the world becomes apparent, and we see that there's no reason why we should be duped by it any more than we'd believe in a mirage once we know that it's a mirage. It's rather like when you find the secret to a magic trick. Let's just say a card trick, for example. Somebody shows you a card trick. It's very impressive. You've no idea how it's done. It's a mystery. Completely baffling and impressive. But when you see how it's done, you're no longer interested. Oh, that's all it was. It becomes irrelevant now. That's how it is. You see the secret of the trick. And once you see the secret of the trick, you don't feel any loss. The wonder and amazement that you felt becomes irrelevant. You don't think, oh, I wish I hadn't found the secret to that trick. I can't be amazed and be in wonderment at it anymore. That's not what happens. You just forget about it. Unless you're a conjurer and you want to learn it. But that's another thing altogether. So it's not the world appearance that ceases, it's the way that we get involved in it, we get lost in it. So the world appearance becomes as alluring as the dream state does to one who's in deep sleep. In other words, the one that's in deep sleep is completely oblivious to the dreaming state. And the one that abides in the self is completely oblivious to notional reality.